This portion of the podcast is sponsored by FlyingEagleGold.com. Over the past year or so, we've heard numerous stories of how billionaires and millionaires, aka the rich, are buying massive amounts of gold and silver. Recently, there have been reports where these billionaires are starting to dump their stock. They are getting out of the stock market. This is one of those red flags that we as preppers need to take notice of because it can be an indication of things to come. There are indicators and flags and markers in the economy, in the financial system that indicate when things may have a pretty significant downturn. And people are suggesting that this is one of those indicators. Don't get stuck holding the bag. You're going to see articles out there that are saying, oh, the economy has stabilized. It's great. You need to come back to the stock market. It's a good time to take a risk. They did this last time, too. If you remember, they get you to buy all their worthless stock because when somebody sells stock, somebody else has to buy it. That's how it works. So this is why you're seeing a lot of mainstream media and a lot of people talking about how it's a good time to get back into the stock market, while all the rich people and the people in the know, the stockbrokers and stuff, they're getting out of the market. And we've seen these articles over the past year or so, or maybe 6 months now. You have to protect your own finances. You have to protect your own wealth and savings. Gold and silver is a great way to do that. Yes, you need to prepare, stock up intangible goods, food, water, shelter, fire, protection. You need all those items. But at some point, you have to protect your savings, and gold and silver is the way to do that. Give my friend Jeff a call at 855-BUY-SILVER, SLVR, or that's 855-289-7587. Or go to FlyingEagleGold.com and learn how to protect your financial wealth today. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast, the podcast that brings you the best in preparedness information. My name is Rob Hannes, and I'm a host for the show. You can follow us on Twitter at PrepCast, like us on Facebook at Preparedness Podcast, and of course, you can always reach me directly at rob@prepcast.info. Last podcast, I had a little bit of an editing issue. Sometimes what happens is I record, and sometimes I get on a roll, or what I think is a roll, only to either go down the wrong path or get into an area I don't really want to get into, or something like that. And instead of editing the 3, 4, 5 minutes that I recorded, sometimes it's easier for me to just delete it and re-record. Well, usually that works out pretty good. Because usually I kind of remember what I wanted to say. Well, what happened with the last podcast is that I pretty much cut out the whole part where I was talking about the listeners that I had met at the Prepare to Endure Expo. And what I had said, and what I want to make sure I say, is that I appreciate coming out there, meeting me, coming listen to my talk, buying the books, talking to me about various prep stuff, give me some feedback on the podcast and the book and stuff. That pretty much made going out to the expo worth it for me. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't gloss over it, because when I listened to the podcast, I'm like, oh, I just kind of glossed over it and kind of deleted the whole section that I had. So there was about, I don't know, there were probably 10, maybe 15 listeners that came up and said that they listened to me. They came here to meet me as well as go to the expo and stuff. So thanks to all of you that I met. I really appreciate it. Even had a listener that came out all the way from Green Bay, Wisconsin, flew to Mesa, Arizona, and then drove to the expo. So that was kind of cool. I really appreciated that. And so I wanted to make sure I got that in there this time. One of the topics that I had discussed with a couple of the listeners at the expo, and I get an email every once in a while from a listener who says, how can I help? Can I make a donation? Can I help with something? And I really appreciate that. And this has come up before, and I've considered doing, donations or whatever, but what I think I'd like to do instead, and of course, if you support the advertisers and support the material we put out, like go to the website, because that helps with page views, and buy the books because that helps with the cost and stuff. But really, what would really help a lot is if you could help me spread the word about the podcast. If the podcast is something you like to listen to, then let the friends and family that you know that might also be interested, or the fellow preppers that you know, if you go to a meetup or whatever it is, let them know about the podcast. I find that a lot of people, because I'm guilty of this too, is I just assume that everybody who is into prepping, it kind of is aware of everything that's going on. For example, I had this assumption that everybody has read 1 Second After by this time, or at least have heard of it. But, I came across some people at the expo that never heard of it, and they were extremely interested in wanting to read the book. So if you could help me pass the word along to other people that's out there, other preppers, maybe make comments on forums or send an email to a friend or family member, let them know it's out there, and help spread the word and build the listenership, that would be great. That would really help the podcast in and of itself. And speaking of the books, if you haven't heard already, the Preparedness Capability Checklist has been published. If you go to the website, thepreparednesspodcast.com, you'll see pictures of the cover images for both books on the left-hand side. If you click through them, you go to the page, and you'll find out how to buy them. One of the things that I've been thinking of is there are a lot of smart people out there, and everybody listening to the podcast isn't a newbie. There's a lot of listeners who've been doing this for a long time, and everybody seems to have a favorite area, which tends to be the area of expertise. And if anybody would like to write an article for the website, I'd be more than happy to put it up there. If that sounds like something you'd like to do, go ahead and draft it up, send it an email, or if you want to just shoot me an idea of something you'd like to write about, you can send it to rob@prepcast.info, and we'll see about getting it up on the website. If you're following the Prepper News Watch that I put out during the week, there are a lot of articles that have to do with the economy, which is to be expected because the economy, it stinks. We know this. But it's not looking like it's going to get any better. In fact, there were like 25 articles on the P&W today just on the economy. But we have this new freedom issue that we're kind of continuing with, and that is the NSA spying on all Americans, which I don't really think it's surprising given what's going on. But there's also some issues with this leak, the whistleblower, so-called. And so what I thought we'd do is we talk to Charlie McGrath from the Wide Awake News. Haven't had him on in a while. Charlie has a show on the Rense Radio Network, and he talks a lot about this politics and the issues of freedom and constitutional issues of how our freedoms and our rights are being eroded. And it's not something that I typically get into on the podcast because I prefer not to be that political. I'd like to have Charlie come on and we can talk about this because he's far more versed in this than I am. And I do this because I think that this is something that preppers need to be aware of. I mean, we can't be fully prepared if we're living in a totalitarian state where we don't have the freedom to have food storage, or we don't have the freedom for self-protection, however we want to define that, guns, ammo, swords, whatever. We need the freedom to prepare and take care of our family the way we want. One of the reasons I prepare is to keep my family as safe as possible. And so, to me, preparedness is very family orientated. It's about, taking care of my wife and kids. It's about making sure that whatever happens, I can take care of them. And that's the big reason why I say make sure you can cover your everyday emergencies first. Car accident, home fire, job loss. Those are, I think, the big three most likely to affect any given person in America, or actually in the world, really. But, that's also why I keep the podcast as clean as possible, because I want people to listen with their kids around, because kids learn from us. If your son and daughter are listening to you about preparedness and they see that you're prepared and you teach them that preparedness is important, then they're going to learn this simply by watching you. And so it's one of the reasons I try to keep the podcast as clean and easy to listen to, so you don't have to worry about running to the volume or the mute button because I said something that you don't want your kids to hear. But that's because it's about family. While I'm waiting for Charlie to come online and so we can get this interview recorded, there was a question that came up at the Prepper Expo at the round table, and we never really fully got to address it because the conversation got off the rails and it went down some deep, dark rabbit hole that was kind of weird. But I thought I would address it here because I think it's kind of important. The question was, what's the one item that you would take with you? I think it was to go for survive, or the one item you had to have to survive. And there was only a couple answers from the roundtable, again, before it got derailed. And I thought it was interesting. I figured everybody would say the same thing, and they didn't. Everybody had a different perspective, which, is fine because you learn things from different perspectives. But I thought it was interesting because my answer is a good knife, which I know everybody seems to think, oh, well, that's the obvious man answer, is you're going to take a knife. But quite honestly, with a good knife, I can make everything else. With a good knife, I can create a makeshift water filter. I can create tools, whether it's for fishing or for hunting or for cooking. I can chop down wood. I can make a shelter. And the ability to cut is paramount because there isn't anything else that I can take with me that will allow me to create a knife, but I can use a knife to create many other things. And when you look for a knife, you need to find something that's obviously within your price range, but don't make it too cheap. I think I've related the story before where I had, back when I was in college, and actually before I went to college, I had bought this. It wasn't a Bushmaster, or it wasn't a Buckmaster, I think is what it was called. But it was something like that. It was a survival knife, and it had a hollow handle, and the hilt had a couple of threaded holes that you could put 2 spikes in it, and I'm not really sure what that was for. I think you were supposed to make a grappling hook out of it or something, because it had a piece on the cap for the hollow handle, had a piece that hung out with a hole like a lanyard you could clip onto it. And I think the thought was you're supposed to make this into a grappling hook. Now, why you would want to throw a sharp knife up someplace to become a grappling hook doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But again, I was young and ignorant back then, and so I bought this knife, and I paid $50 for it, which, quite honestly, that was a lot of money to me back then. And I mean, not to say it's not now, but I mean, for a kid who really didn't have a stable job, stable income, spending $50 on a knife was a huge investment. But I thought that was going to be the knife, my survival knife. And the spine of this knife had 2 serrated edges to it. One was this deep scalloping, which I told myself would be good for ripping through like an aluminum fuselage, like on a plane or a boat. And the other one was a serrated right off the false edge. It was a serrated knife edge. And I babied this thing because I spent so much money on it. I didn't want to use it. I didn't want it to get dull, even though I had a really hard time sharpening. And this should have been my first clue, is I go to sharpen this, and I'd sharpen, and I sharpen, and I sharpen, and it would not really get sharp. I mean, you could cut with it, but it wasn't it wasn't even as sharp as a good working edge, and certainly nowhere near as close as like a scalpel or a surgical edge. Now, I used to carry this knife everywhere. I had a black military web belt that I bought for it, and it had a very thick leather sheath, and I had basically taken it with me everywhere because this was my last-ditch survival tool, whether it was a weapon or whatever, but I didn't want to use it. And this is the lesson that I'm trying to convey, is I babied it because I wanted to save it for just in case I needed it, which, looking back, doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to a certain point until you realize that, quite honestly, if you haven't tested your preps, if you hadn't tested something yourself, then it doesn't work. And it's very important to understand that concept because, and this knife is a good example, took it camping once, And I decided that, you know what? I'm going to test this. I'm just going to chop some wood with it. I'm going to go ahead and walk out on that edge, and I'm going to use the knife. And so I had this block of wood, and it wasn't even a full tree. It was like maybe a quarter tree that was already kind of split. You know, it was already a piece of firewood, and I just decided I was going to cut it into littler pieces of firewood, like for kindling. And so I start whacking away with this knife, and I think it was the third or the fourth hit, the handle starts to twist around the blade. And so I've got this knife that I can't even use anymore. Remember, third or fourth hit on the piece of firewood. And because the blade is spinning around, and I unscrew the cap and I look, and there's a nut down by the hilt where that attaches the blade, but I can't get to it because it would require an extremely long, very narrow socket to get on there and put in there. And I'm like, this was my epiphany for preps, because I carried this thing for years, literally years, and I finally go to use it, and it fails on me. And the realization was like, wow, even though I spent what I thought was a lot of money, when I finally used it, it failed. Now, if this had been a survival situation where I needed to make firewood, or I needed the knife, I probably would have been, well, I may have died, because if I died of exposure or something, because I couldn't start a fire because I couldn't make small wood out of big wood, this knife totally failed me. And like I said, it was a huge lesson on being prepared, because you're not prepared. If you haven't tested it, you're not prepared. If you have an evacuation plan and you haven't tested that plan, then you don't have an evacuation plan. If you have preps to filter water, if you haven't actually tested that, then you don't really have a means to filter water. It's extremely important that you test everything. Now, that doesn't mean you have to test every little detail. You don't have to test every little water. If you have spare filters, you need to inspect them, make sure they're good, but you need to test the water filter itself. Does it work? Does your flashlight work? If you have a drawer full of batteries, or a drawer full of flashlights or headlamps or whatever it may be, you need to test those. You test them, you put them away. Well, then you need to recheck them and reinspect them on a regular basis. If you don't, then you don't know whether or not you can rely on them. And it's so important, because if you have a survival kit that's got all this great stuff in it, you got a water filter and a really cool sparking tool and a great knife and all this stuff, you need to go out and test that. You need to spend a day, maybe a day camp, where you go out early in the morning, you come back at night, and you use this equipment all day long to set up a shelter, make a fire, maybe find food or cook the food you have in your pack, filter water. And if you do a day camp, then you don't have that stress of having to stay out overnight. Do that once or twice when you become comfortable with it. Then spend overnight. Do a overnight camping, Saturday to Sunday or something, with just your kit. Use everything in your kit. Use the parachute cord. You know, you've probably heard that the reason we like parachute cord is because it's got 7 internal strands. You can extract those strands from the sheath, and now you have 8 pieces of cordage. You have the sheath that you can still use, say, for example, your bootlaces or your shoelaces, and then you have the inner cores that you can use. They're a little bit thinner, so you could sew with them or tie little things up. You know what? If you actually haven't tried extracting those cores out of a piece of parachute cord, how do you know it works? How do you know whether or not it's going to work for you? Or how do you know how to do it? Can you do it on a 100-foot piece of parachute cord? If you haven't tried it, you probably don't know. So you need to test all these things, because it's critically important. And that's one of the things I mean when I say do your own research. I should probably expand that to say do your own research, test your preps. Have a grid down weekend. Have a bug out day camp. Have a bug out weekend where you're using just what you would take if you had to evacuate or bug out. Very important, very critical to do that. And as I had related in the story, if I had kept this knife all the way to now, never needed it, it would fail me at the wrong moment. Now, when I buy a knife, I don't want to say abuse the knife, because I don't do that, because you can ruin any knife. But I'm not afraid to pound with it. I'm not afraid to chop with it. I'm not afraid to stick it in a piece of log and use another piece of wood to pound the blade through so I can get smaller pieces of wood. I'm not afraid to do that. The knife I would take if I had to go into the woods with nothing else would probably be my Cold Steel Trailmaster with the carbon 5 blade. I've got a couple. I've got a stainless steel one and I've got a carbon 5, and I love that carbon 5. After that, it probably would be the Cold Steel SRK. Very good knives. The USMC K-Bar is a really good knife too, but you need to find out what works for you, and you will only do that if you test. And so that's definitely something you need to do. This is my little tip for just before we get on with Charlie, which I'm going to bring on right now. Hey, Charlie, welcome back to the podcast.
It is great to be back on your podcast.
Charlie McGrath of the Wide Awake News Network. Is that how it is? Wide Awake News Network, or is it Wide Awake News Radio Network?
Wow. I mean, I've not thrown a network in there. No, it's wideawakenews.com. Wide Awake News Radio is Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock West, 6 o'clock West, 9 o'clock East. And I host the Tuesday night program, but I have great host and guest host, one of which was you, Rob Hannes.
That's right.
It was just last week for me, Tuesday.
Yep.
You did a great job, too, by
I think your rating is tanked, down to 10%, but hey, I take no responsibility for that.
It was a great program. And if you want to hear that program, you can go to my YouTube channel, Krabby Dog Tricks on YouTube, or you can just type in Wide Awake News on YouTube. And you can hear Rob's program, which was last Tuesday.
Yeah, and when you go to YouTube, he mentioned it, but it is Krabby Dog Tricks as the user, which is kind of not really something
weird,
you'd expect, but that's what it is. It works. So don't think you're at the wrong channel. That's where it is.
Well, and you know what? And I said go to Wide Awake News, but we have a Wide Awake News YouTube channel. I just don't use it. I basically got that name just to lock up the name. But when I started all this independent media, quest, I guess, it wasn't a quest I was going to, try to do full time or try to do in any kind of extent, especially as we do now. And my YouTube channel way back when in 2008, you had to pick a name, and every name in the world was taken. And my dog, Trixie, she barks at the screen every time there's a video playing, so she gets Krabby, and her name is Tricks, Krabby Dog Tricks, and it rolled from there. But and now I think we're up to 16 or 17,000 subscribers, and it's just, it's just difficult to change over. Once you're locked in,
sure, to
a name, you're locked in. So
I did that when I first started this back in 2008. When I started the podcast, I had the preparednessblog.com, the preparednesspodcast.com, and prepcast.info, 3 different sites. Ideally for the podcast one was going to be a forum, the prepcast.info was going to be like a portal to all the other sites, and the blog was going to be a blog. And I did that for a while, and then when I restarted the podcast about a year ago, it was like, this is far too much work to try to. So I luckily they were all mine, and they were websites, not like a YouTube entity. I was just able to redirect it, but still, it's just once you kind of start, it's like, oh, I should have done something different, but it's too late, so you just go with it.
Yeah, well, and once in a while, it's fun to explain how you got there. But yeah, when you go to the channel Krabby Dog Tricks, it says Wide Awake News all over it. So once you're on, if somebody receives a video, if you forward a video from the channel, it just looks like Wide Awake News because of the way Google is integrated. Or if you type in Charlie McGrath on YouTube, you'll end up at that site. But inevitably, if you dig deep enough, you're going to see a Krabby Dog Tricks, and that is.
I only mention it because when I first went there, I'm like, oh, is this the right place? Because there's a lot of spoofs, there's a lot of people who, do all sorts of crazy stuff, and like on Twitter, it's the real Charlie McGrath or the real, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. I get people occasionally. They'll go to the Wide Awake News one, and I think it's got like 50 subscribers, the one that's locked up under Wide Awake News. And, so they'll say, oh, you're nothing, you're nobody, blase. You don't have anybody following you on YouTube. And I'm like, well, okay, go to Krabby Dog Tricks. That's the one you want to go to. So,
right. Yeah. All right. So the big political news stories, and as I had kind of preface before you came on, I don't really touch on politics, but I think it's important because, as preppers, we need to keep our freedoms as much as possible, because if we aren't free to store food, and if we aren't free to protect ourselves, and if we aren't free to do the things that we want to do, then we really can't be prepared. And even though, politics should not be part of preparedness, a lot of times you kind of need to step into that realm and take a look what's going on and make sure that you stay vocal and stay part of the system. So that's why I like having you on, because you're up to date on this stuff. And boy, this NSA is really kind of flown out. I mean, I know there's a lot of scandals going around, but this NSA one where it's spying on everybody is really kind of just come out of the gate there and just kind of I don't know if it surprised everybody, but it's quite a big revelation.
Well, and I don't know. First of all, I don't know any preppers that don't keep up on, at least to some level. I mean, every prepper I've ever met understands basics, right? They understand the Federal Reserve is the boss. That's the true government of this country. They understand that, bankers are going to get a pass while Main Street continues to decline. They understand that there's complete and utter inequity in government, and that government isn't working on their behalf. I don't know of any preppers that are just completely oblivious to the political situation.
Yeah, you're right, and I don't mean to downplay it too much. You're right, and I think I find the same thing with other preppers. They're very, very politically attuned.
A lot of times they don't say anything, Rob. I think a lot of times people don't want to get into that discussion because they don't feel comfortable. They'd rather talk about, the end goal or the end of the story, which is this government, this out of control tyrannical government will lead to something that is certainly very much necessary that we prep and be ready to take care of ourselves. But a lot of people just don't want to get into the political aspect of it. A lot of people don't want to get, they understand that everything that they do, every keystroke they make, every text that they send out or tweet that they make or video they make is going to be surveilled. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people that do not want to be in that category. I don't blame them. I really don't. I mean, it's far too late for me. I'm there. I've done nearly 800 commentary videos and, 1,000 radio programs, and I'm more than sure that I'm in some database somewhere.
Sure. And you know what? That brings up a really good point that, you have a lot of people who talk about, well, I don't want to show up any lists, so I'm really careful about what's, know what? If they're into everything, I mean, I've seen stories where, Windows, the operating system, Microsoft just put in back doors for the NSA and stuff. I mean, if they're into everything like that, and I don't know if it's true. I don't know if this Snowden guy is a double agent and he's just blowing smoke, or I don't really know what the reality is. But it's not really a stretch to assume that they can tap into anything digital, because I mean it's digital. It's not like it's that difficult. Then you're on a list. Everybody's on the list. So why bother? Why stop? I mean, I tell people I want the government to know that I'm disgruntled. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not worried about that. But it's like, look, let them know I'm disgruntled. Let them know that I'm not afraid to stand up for my rights. And if they see enough people out there doing that, I think they're going to have second thoughts. And I'm bolstered, quite honestly, the backfiring of this gun legislation. There's anti-gun or gun control legislation that they've tried to push. It completely backfired them. And now we have more pro-gun laws than we did even a couple years ago. And I'm like, that's awesome, because as long as we can maintain our guns, they really can't get away with too much. I mean, they can get away with whatever they want, but at some point, we still have the ultimate control.
Yeah, well, and I don't think the gun debate is done by any stretch. I think that
no, they're going to continue to try and get us while we're sleeping.
Yeah, and
we don't sleep.
Right, there will be an event. There will be, unfortunately. I mean, the truth of the matter is on gun violence, it's very, very provable that it's on the decline. I mean, that's a fact. The most recent statistics I read were between 93 and 2011, and it had fallen a staggering, almost 40% decline in gun violence in that time period. that doesn't mean that we're not going to have occasional, wackadoodles doing things that are dominating the media. And every time that we have a wackadoodle that does something, then it becomes more and more urgent that we steal more of our rights, our Second Amendment. And so that, another reason why it's important to be involved and not be afraid to be on that list. But over the years, I really understand why some people, especially preppers, if you're listening to your podcast or others, and you're in the prep community, or at least you're into prepping, one aspect of being a prepper could be you want to be invisible, right? You want to be off. You want to be off the radar of everybody. And I could see that. I could get behind and support somebody who said, you know what, I don't want to be on a power grid. I don't want to be hooked up to cable or internet. I don't want anybody to know anything there. I want to hide the information about me and keep it as personal as possible. I'm going to go live in the Northwest Territories. Screw the system. I can see that, and I think that is not a bad way to go, especially looking at where we're headed.
Well, one of the questions on, I think the first show I was on with you on your show, there was a question either from a caller or the chat room, and is like, well, aren't you like giving up your operational security, or aren't you worried about talking about your preps? And it's like, yes, I am, but I had a top secret clearance in the Marine Corps. I'm on the list. You can't get off the list once you're on the list, and I'm not doing anything illegal, so I'm not really worried about the government overstepping their bounds with me, because I'm not really giving them cause. But I think it's important to teach people and get as many people as prepared, because whatever it may be, whatever it's an economic collapse or a major massive earthquake, or 2.6 mile wild tornado in Oklahoma a couple months ago. That's the biggest ever on record. We don't know what's around the corner, and I think the more people we can get prepared, that the better it'll be for everybody. But it is a struggle. I have yet to put any videos out with my face on it. I have yet to put my picture out there and associate with the podcast. And my wife and I are talking about this all the time. Is this something we want to do? Because once you put it out there, you can't take it back. You know, and it's just something that I don't. I'm trying to promote the podcast. Probably needs to be done, but this is my barrier right now. Is like, okay, I've gone as far as I can. I'm as prepared for security as much as I can. But you take that next step, and it's something you have to consider.
Yeah, no doubt. And I guess my take on it is, I'm to the point that I worried at first. I worried at first when I did my first YouTube video. Oh man, I'm going to be out there. People are going to see this, and now I just don't care. There's more and more people coming around to our point of view. They understand things are not right. I do believe we are going to have a civil meltdown in our nation, and it's going to be accompanied at the same time by the worst economic meltdown we've ever seen. And at this point in time, that is I believe that 100%. I have no doubt whatsoever that our future holds that. The only question is, when does it happen? And so I start to weigh, am I worried about saying something or being perceived a certain way by friends or family or the public in general, or do I worry about trying to wake people up to what I know is coming? I just absolutely know that this is going to happen. And I don't know at what point. It was probably early on where I just like, well, you know what? I really don't care. We all have to make decisions in life and run with them. And we all have to go to bed at night. And, if we know things are going south, if we know they're going to hell in a handbasket, and we choose to do nothing about it, be it take care of our family or try to wake people up or whatever, if it's just going to bed and pretending it isn't going to happen, that's just something I can't do. And I know that's something you can't do either. Yeah,
you're right. And part of it is I like to teach people. I like to help them be prepared. It's something I've always kind of like to do. But you're right. That's a big part of it, is like, you know what, I'm not stepping out and saying, oh, you need to rail against the man and stuff. But in my own way, if I can help people get prepared, because I know the commonality in survival scenarios is the same. You need food, you need water, you need to be able to shelter, you need to be able to start food, you need to have survival skills. And having those skills is going to allow you to survive far better regardless of what the event is, whether it's economy or a tsunami or a hurricane or natural disasters or a chemical plant, fire or something. Being prepared is the key. And yeah, it's real, because I still think about stopping, because it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to keep the podcast going and the website and stuff. And probably not a week goes by where I'm like, I'd probably rather be doing something else. But I know as soon as I stop, it would be like, I don't feel like I'm contributing back to society. And this is one of the areas that I can help with. So this is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's just it. We do what we're driven to do, or what we're, some people are called to do it. And in whatever segment, I cover corruption in Washington and the financial system. I do prep, but I don't talk a lot about it, because there's a lot of good people like you that are, and it's just it's something that to me that is more personal. What I'm doing, what you do to take care of your family is more personal than what I come on the program or YouTube and do, because that's you're really letting people know what you do, what you have, and in some cases where you're at in the level of prep, and so to me that's more scary than getting on here and complaining.
Yeah, well, I can see that in some regards. I just want to pause briefly here for our next sponsor, and that's campingsurvival.com. If you're looking for a great solution to put into your bug out bag or your camping list or your evacuation bag, whether it's for fire, shelter, water, campingsurvival.com probably has what you need. For example, they've got the Life Straw, which is a really neat device that, for $20 you can go ahead and carry this water filter with you. If you are concerned about radiation emergencies, which you should, they've got the potassium iodate tablets. They've got packs. They've got rope. They got all sorts of great stuff. Go ahead, check them out, campingsurvival.com. It's one of the places that I love to go, because when I'm looking for the common solution, like, I've always meant to get this, or I always meant to get this, I never have, and they're going to have that thing as well as new things. For example, just recently I discovered that they've got not one, but actually two lids for canteen cups. So this lid goes over the canteen cup, keeps the ash out of the whatever you're cooking, whether you're boiling water or cooking food, because every time I cook or warm stuff on a fire in my canteen cup, I constantly get ash in it. Additionally, that lid would also help retain heat. So if I had a limited fuel supply, like a triaxane, or trying to cook with some twigs, that'll help keep the heat in. I wish I would have had one of those in the Marine Corps. That would have been great, but they've got those. So if you're looking for a great solution, you're going to find it at campingsurvival.com. Hey, just a quick subject change. Have you seen that article where it's three pictures of what appears to be the same woman crying at the three last big death events, the bombing, Sandy Hook, and there was one other one. But have you seen that?
No, I haven't. I'm Googling it right now, because that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I'll have to I'll see if I can find it real quick.
Women at three events, morning at three events, or something like that.
Yeah, she's on the phone at all three events. She's got the same cry look.
You'll have to send me the link on it. I definitely want to check that out. That wouldn't surprise me. There's always bizarre stuff.
Here it is.
In fact,
let me send you this link.
Okay.
Now it's on Before It's News, which I realize isn't necessarily, a authority.
They run good stuff over there. I like the guys over at Before It's News. I mean, sometimes they get a little Bigfooty, but that's fine.
But there's a picture right there, and it's for the listeners who hasn't seen this. You can go to the Prepper News Watch for June 17th, and it is in I think it's in the Freedom section. No, it's in the news section, and the title is "The Same Girl is Photographed Crying at the Boston Bombing, the Aurora Massacre, and the Sandy Hook Massacre." And when you click through it, it's on beforeitsnews.com, and there's a picture, and it's got two insets of what looks to be the exact same girl She's on the phone in two of them, but crying in all three do look similar. But this to me is one of those. Oh, really?
There's no doubt that is the same. I'm looking at this now, Rob. There's no doubt in my mind that that's the same girl. You know, her.
Well, the two left, the center and the left picture, yes. The one on the right, she looks like she's gained weight a little bit, or maybe she lost. I don't know, but I mean, there's definitely something there that makes you go,
Yeah,
the problem are the things that I look for when I look at. Again, I don't do conspiracies because I back in the 90s, there were conspiracies about everything, and none of it came true as far as I could tell. I don't think that there has to be a conspiracy. I think they're doing stuff right underneath our nose. I mean, the corruption in the government is so blatant right now. They say whatever they want, and then if they get caught, they say, "Oh, I never said that."
Yeah, no doubt about it. And why would they do that? I mean, if this is the girl, first of all, yeah, I think it's all three the same, but it doesn't mean that it's all three at three different events. It could be, this girl.
And that's true. I mean, we don't know they're actually at three events, and it's just hopefully there's some investigative reporters working on it. But I just thought it was interesting.
Well,
that came out.
there was all kinds of stuff that besides this girl. That's just a funny footnote, right? There was all kinds of stuff with all three events that screamed not legitimate, right? And so this didn't have to be true, not true, whatever. This didn't have to be thrown in there for me to doubt the official tagline of all three of these events. So to me, it's anecdotal, but somewhat funny if it was some kind of false flag event and they used the same actor to fly her around the country. That seems kind of far fetched to me, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's true. I just thought it was interesting. Wanted to get your take on it because it's kind of it's one of those things that the government's smart, but they're not that smart. So I don't know. I don't know how to put it.
You got her on the payroll, and she's a good photo op, but it's a lot like Snowden. We briefly talked about him at the beginning, and it's a lot like Private Manning, right? Since Manning, his ordeal, he's been in prison for 3 years, and Snowden, the latest whistleblower, I've received all kinds of questions about or outright declarations that both of these guys are CIA plants or CIA operatives. They're not real. They're Snowden's working for China, and Manning's nothing but a dupe for Assange, and he's a government plant from the get-go. And so you get all these conspiracies. At least people that are convinced that they're conspiracies, and so they want to just discount the whole information or all the information right away. They want to make the focus the conspiracy. And I've gotten a few debates with guys. I'm like, well, come on, man. What you're offering is a distraction, and what I'm taking from these events, be it Manning or Snowden, isn't their story, right? Isn't their story of why they did what they did. I'm looking at the information that they put out, and I really don't care what their motivation was. Frankly, I'm going to take them both at their face value. It was a matter of conscience for Manning, and the same thing for Snowden. They couldn't handle it anymore. Both these guys said they couldn't live in a world or in a society that was this dominated and controlled by government. So they released this information. The information is what I care about, not necessarily the motivation for the person that did the whistleblowing. And it is so easily lost, and more so in independent media than even mainstream. The reason is always it turns to be the reason or the focus of the person who releases the information, and that's the wrong way, as far as I'm concerned, to look at these situations. Yeah. I want to see the info Manning put out. I want to see these helicopters that are cutting down civilians in the name of fighting the war on terror, or I want to know the information that Snowden released. We'd have to be fools to think that this information was released by a tyrannical government who was trying to bolster its case for tightening down security. Because if it is, then they are truly idiots. I mean, these two individuals have changed a lot of people's minds in this country, that the government isn't on their side, and and has enlightened them, has wakened them up to the realization that they are all about domination and control, not of terror-loving terrorists, but of Americans. So, again, it's the information that I'm concerned with, not necessarily the motivation of the people.
Sure. And that brings up a good point. I was going to ask is, have we had, I mean, I know the media always focuses it on the non-important aspect of it, like you were just saying, but have we had any validation or verification of what Snowden is saying, to any of it being true? Is there any, I mean, I know there's a lot of speculation out there, even like that article I mentioned about Microsoft. There's no proof necessarily. It's all speculative. Is there anything there to suggest, I mean, other than anecdotal, I mean, is there proof? Did he give proof? Do we have proof, even partial?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's no doubt. You mean on the information that he released?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean, this is information that he released from the contractor that worked for the NSA, which he used to be gainfully employed. I mean, it was the breakdown of PRISM top to bottom, and there's been all kinds of confirmation that government has come out and corroborated this story on. They are taking some of his story and saying that he's that it's being exaggerated. Of course, the big nine internet companies that are directly named and were in the slideshow that he released, that was NSA documentation, are all saying, well, we participate, but your information's safe. They never had access to backdoors, this, that, and the other thing. But there's also been all kinds of information coming out on the other end of it that we don't know the half of how much information they're gathering, recording, and the info that they're keeping on people. So I don't think that there's anybody that is saying, even in official establishment media or the halls of government, that is saying that this is made up. It's not. PRISM's a real thing. They could track it back to the inception of PRISM and then the program that led to PRISM before that was established. But no, there's no doubt that this is occurring. There's no doubt that these companies receive carte blanche if they play ball, where they cannot be prosecuted and they cannot be held to any kind of a civil action for giving over this data. And there's no doubt that that it's going to continue, regardless of how many whistleblowers come out. It's going to continue until the people in general, stand up and say enough is enough. No, what they're doing now, though, is just as interesting. When this first came out, the so-called leaders in Washington, D.C., the stance was the information is being overplayed. It's being overblown. They do go in and take this info, but only on a necessary basis, and that there's nothing to see here. Well, that quickly changed into, all right, nobody's buying this. There's too many other people coming out to confirm this. So we're going to say that Snowden is a spy for China. So this is the tack that they're doing now, coupled with people, the average person, saying, oh, well, this is good for the country. This is good. And I saw a headline this morning I posted on my website. 66% of the people are in favor of the NSA's programs to follow and track information. And then
I don't believe that. That can't be true.
No, that isn't true. Of course not. Of course that's not true. Of course it's a lie. But it's interesting to watch the tactics that are being used. We go from disavow the information completely. That didn't work. So then we go to a two-pronged attack of this guy's a terrorist and he's working as a spy for China. That's really convenient because we've had China in the crosshairs over the last month or so on information technology that they've been accused of coming in and taking. So we're going to go that Snowden's a spy and that the people really want to be surveilled. So that's a tack they're taking now. And to me, I sit back and watch this and I'm like, this is an Orwellian playbook, right? Up is down, peace is love, or peace is war.
Oh yeah.
Love is hate, and the whole 9 yards. But this is how they play the game, and this is how they'll spin it until they can get it out of the news cycle.
Speaking of Orwellian, just as a point, if you, the listener, haven't read 1984, it's an interesting book, and you probably should read it because there's a lot of references that come back to that.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of what they're doing, is there a way? Let's take it on face value that they're pretty much got their digital hooks into everything and can access anything. is there any talk that you've come across that basically gives us some sort of idea how to circumvent it or to stay off the, I don't want to say stay off the radar because that's not really the right term, but is there, how do we go about protecting ourselves? I mean, I've stayed away from encrypting like my emails and stuff simply because either I don't want to cause undue attention because, hey, why is this guy using encrypted emails all the time? That seems kind of weird. What does he have that has to be encrypted? There's so much noise of traffic going across anyways, unless I'm hitting buzzwords, I'm assuming that, nobody's looking at my stuff, but maybe that's not the case. Have you heard anything about what we can do to stay low on the attention list?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier when I said move to the Northwest Territories and chop down trees to build a cabin.
I love my iPad way too much to do that.
Well, there's nothing. There has been talk of apps coming out that make it impossible. I had a friend send me a link for an app that was kind of like a Twitter, except the cache is cleared multiple times a day, and none of that information is supposed to be ever accessible or encrypting or that kind of thing.
Yeah, but how can we believe that? Because
you can't. You can't.
Microsoft and Apple and Intel and all these big companies, big tech companies, their name fell on the list of, oh yeah, they're totally embedded with this NSA thing. Yeah. And then they come out with PR statements that say in no uncertain terms, no, we're not a part of this. And I'm like, well, how are we going to know? Who's going to hold your feet to the fire to know whether or not that's a true statement? I mean, the government's not going to come after you because, that's what they want you to say if you really are part of this. How do we know?
We don't. Well, we'd have to assume. Look, $1 billion fusion center, Salt Lake City, Utah. Right. That's a recent build out. There's 72 fusion centers across this nation right now. There's 200 million people that are in a facial recognition database in our country right now. If we think for 1 second that we're not being surveilled and we're not, that information, that doesn't mean that every word that you say on internet radio or on Twitter or every word you text on Twitter is being read by an analyst, but it is being recorded. And if you don't think that, then you're not living in reality. If you want to avoid it, you basically, you know what? There's going to be people that disagree with this and say, I have the best software, blah, blah, blah. I have the best programs, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. You have nothing. You are 100% trackable, traceable, everything that you do, unless, again, you are just not in the system. And I don't know anybody that doesn't carry around a cell phone. I don't know anybody that doesn't have a laptop computer. Now, if they don't, then they are the outlier because most people are plugged into this system, and therefore they have to assume that everything that they write, everything that they say, everything that they tweet or text or anything else is going to be pigeonholed and put on file somewhere for an extended period of time so that they can go look back and look at that information at their will. I don't think that's right. I think it's completely unconstitutional, but it is a reality that we're living in. So in some ways, Rob, I mean, we'd be better off to overload the system, to use 75 of the key words that the NSA looks for or that the Department of Homeland Security looks for as a potential threat. We'd almost be better off to overload that system by using those words and force them to look at all these potential air quote threats that are out there. But to try to hide from it, I don't know how you do it, man. I just don't. I don't even think you could communicate with ham radio, because that's something you're a bit of an expert on, without that information being recorded or being listened to. I just don't think that in our society we can function. Again, this might tick some people off, but if they're out there, it's a very, very small community that does not have to plug into the internet at some point. Well,
I think what we teach our kids is, hey, be careful what you put on the internet, because basically once it's on the internet, it doesn't go away. I mean, right. you may think it's erased, but there may be an archive someplace. I mean, there are not corporations, but I think they're like nonprofit organizations, like archive.org. They go out and they scour the internet all the time, and they archive this data. You're not going to get it taken off of there. No. So it's in one hand, it's not much different than what we already have to contend with. But on the other hand, it is, far more nefarious.
Well, and I think what you said is perfect. If you turn on your computer, why don't you just pretend you're in an auditorium with 100 people watching you? Because that's exactly what you say will be heard. At least if it's not heard, it's going to be recorded. So you better keep that in your mind when you're texting somebody, or when you're writing an email, or when you're commenting in a chat room. You better keep in mind that everything is being recorded, and everything's being kept for further scrutiny. So if you have that perspective, and you just treat everything as a public event, that would probably go a long way in helping you not to say something or do something that is going to get an FBI guy knocking on your door.
Right. And when was it?
And I hope that, Rob, I hope that doesn't come across as the same kind of guy that would say, if you don't do anything wrong, you don't have to worry about a traffic cam light. Because I hate that perspective.
Oh yeah, me too.
I hate the perspective, or I hate the fact that everything's being surveilled. I hate it with a burning passion. And I do believe there will come a day that that part of this social and civil breakdown and unrest that's coming will be because of an outreach or an overstretch of government to surveil everybody. That will be in the mix. That'll be part of the problem. But I guess the question was, how do you avoid it? And the answer is you don't. So you better understand you're not going to avoid it. You better believe that everything you say is going to be recorded. So if you have the guts to get on there and say things that you would say in private, God bless you. If you don't want that stigma of your opinion being heard by everybody, keep it in mind before you open your mouth.
Yeah, I don't think it came across. At least that's not how I took it. I mean, I hate those people too. I've had some conversations with these people who think that these laws that allow them to monitor your banks and whatever you do. Well, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's fine. It's like, you don't get it, No, yeah. I don't think it came across that way. But what I was going to say is I'm waiting to hear what Anonymous has to say about this, because when they first came out, I'm like, you idiots. You leave the system alone. You're mucking it up. But now I find myself turning to these type of groups of, hey, maybe, this is the other side or the weapon that we have for defense or even possibly offense to, help tear this stuff down. And it gets into this kind of convoluted, not really sure what to believe sort of thing, because you'd like to think Anonymous is a real hacker group that really is for internet freedoms and digital freedom and stuff, but geez, maybe they're just another NSA group, Well,
but that, again, we got to go back to the same discussion. And, it's real easy in this community, not so much the prepper. Well, I guess the prepper community too. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists that run around the prepper movement, think, it's saying everything is a conspiracy. Everything is the man trying to manipulate points of view. But again, I think that there's certainly an outreach by government to make people look crazy, right? Either Second Amendmenters, truthers, freedom lovers, that kind of thing. There's no denying that happens, and there's plenty of legitimate proof that points to that. But we have to look at the end results of groups and people, and what be it whistleblowers or Anonymous, to see if we look at what happens because of their actions. I think that speaks more about the legitimacy of them than the whole alternative movement or the conspiracy movement coming out saying, well, we can't trust anything they say because they're a plant. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. I'm not going to spend my time worrying about it, because I know government is trying to smash down free speech and free thought. I know that's a fact. I don't have to be convinced of that. So I'll look at Anonymous to see, the result of their actions. Now, some could say that because Anonymous is doing the attacks, the cyber attacks that they're doing, it's giving legitimacy to the government to continue to crack down. I take a different perspective. I look at Anonymous as going a long way in waking a lot of people up, because when they do these actions, there are more and more people that are saying, wait a minute, why are they doing this, and what's going on, and why is Google blacked out, and why is this shut down? Why is there so much attention being paid to Anonymous? And I think if it is a government plan, an NSA plan, it's a very, very poor one on their part because of the attention that it creates. That is ends up being opposition for their agenda. Same thing with Manning. Same thing with Snowden. You got to look at the information that is released or the results of the actions of these groups. If it's an NSA plan or a government plan, well, they screwed up because I think it's done more. Anonymous has done more to turn people towards reality than it has to turn them towards wanting more tyrannical government.
Speaking of, the whole crazy part, that was the other thing I wanted to cover was it's in today's Prepper News Watch as well, is that the CDC has come out and said nearly 50% of U.S. adults will develop at least one mental illness. Really?
Right.
Really? That's like, I know some schools, they have in kindergarten, they rate the kids whether or not they're a special need. And, I've heard of kindergartens where there's 80% of the children are special needs. No, they're not. You can't have the majority have a special need. That is completely antithesis to what that means. And to me, I saw this and immediately I'm thinking, oh, this is the easy way to classify any. Oh, you got a mental illness, can't own guns, or
right.
You can't own children, or you can't make the decision on how your children want to be raised. Oh, you can't homeschool because you have a mental illness.
Right, and that is part of the the agenda on gun control. And I think you and I talked a little bit before the program, and that the gun control debate isn't done. It's on the back burner for right now, or at least it seems to be somewhat on the back burner. But it's real clear what the tact that they're taking on this, which is going to be we're going to enhance background checks so there's no loopholes at gun shows. We're going to restrict the capacity of magazines and then certain types of firearms, even perhaps. And the clause that everybody better be terrified of is the mental illness clause. Because I'm telling you something, Rob, what you're doing, prepping, is going to get morphed into a mental illness. What I'm doing is going to get morphed into a mental illness.
Oh, absolutely. No, they've got to get programs on there. I mean, Doomsday Preppers, it's a reality show, and so which means it's not reality. There's a lot of people being prodded, oh, do this, oh, do that, or think this way or something.
Right.
You got to really want it. But then, you've got this other show, Hoarders, right?
Right.
It's about these people who just hoard that's the, and it's just like, I mean, it's garbage, and it's, I can't get rid of my Big Mac styrofoam containers and all that stuff. But that's only one small hop and a skip from preppers with food storage,
right,
or ammunition, and that's
which is just one small step from if you're anti-government, if you're anti-fiat currency, if you're anti-Federal Reserve, if you're anti-big bank, all of those will be morphed into you have a mental illness. You're delusional, and you're a threat to society. So you need to fall into the category of not being able to purchase a gun.
Oh, and back in the day, people say, oh, the government will never come after you for that. Oh, they'll never do that. Really? Well, what happened with the IRS? The IRS was targeting conservative groups. That is discrimination. What's going on with it? Oh, well, we're still trying to figure out what's going on. Really? If the IRS was going after liberal groups, there'd be holy heck to pay in the media and all that stuff. But they are targeting certain groups for certain reasons. And it's no longer a what if or, gee, I don't ever think that'll happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to have you come on, because these are real issues that preppers need to deal with, because they are no longer hypothetical. They're actual. And I don't have the full acuity to be able to cover all these details and stuff. So I stay with what I know, and that's prepping and stuff. But I think it's important enough to have you come on and talk about this, because these are things that I think we do need to be aware of.
I think if you're a prepper and you're not aware of, at least not keeping one eye on what's happening with your freedom, then you're not prepping, right? You're waiting. If you're just looking at natural disasters, that's a legitimate thing to prep for. But you would touch on it earlier. The same kind of the same kind of chaos and calamity that can come out of a natural disaster can certainly come out of what we have going on with policy and in Washington, D.C. Honestly, I think that's a bigger threat to the nation as a whole than natural disaster. Now, we could have something like Yellowstone go up, and it makes all this other stuff irrelevant, right? Where it's going to affect the planet.
Right.
But is sitting back and looking at the landscape right now, I see the nation more divided than ever. I see a big, big battle coming over immigration. I see more talk of expanding the security industrial complex at the exact same time that we're finding out the NSA is recording everything that we're talking about. I see the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and more people becoming utterly disenfranchised and upset. So civil unrest, social unrest, political upheaval, economic collapse, those are all things that affect the nation as a whole. And something that, as I alluded to at the beginning of the program, I believe 100% is in the future of this country and the world. And so we got to keep an eye on what's going on politically, because when this all goes down, when the finger is pulled out of the dam, if you will, I think it's going to be a quick decline. And it could be an economic event. It could be a social event. It could be civil unrest. When it occurs, I think it's going to spiral quickly out of control. It could be a military. We didn't even talk about Syria tonight. But you have Syria that is absolutely 100% proven, no question, no shadow of a doubt, that we are backing the people, the so-called freedom fighters that want to topple Assad. And these freedom fighters are 100% being dominated by the groups that we're supposed to believe Al-Qaeda, who are terrorists. They call them al-Nusra in Syria. But this is the same group we've been shooting at in Afghanistan and in Iraq for over a decade. We're backing them. And we have Russia, a nation with 3,000 plus nuclear weapons that is going to be sending high-tech weaponry to Assad to defend against Al-Qaeda, who we are backing. So we could wake up tomorrow to a tanker being tipped over in the Straits of Hormuz, or to some kind of a massive conflict with these proxy warriors fighting that escalates into a hot war between the U.S. and Russia. I mean, anything and everything is on the table. All of which, everything that is on that table requires us to be vigilant and to be a good prepper. I do believe you have to keep your eye on the local, the regional, the national, and the global political scene.
Well, I was going to ask you about Syria, and you basically answered it as far as do you really think that's possibility to lead up to World War III? And you pretty much answered it right there.
Absolutely.
And
Of all the conflicts we've been dragged kicking and screaming into, at least in the independent movement, the same lies are being used in this one: weapons of mass destruction, red line crossed, a threat to the global peace, blah blah blah. But of all the ones that we've seen in the last decade, you would have to be extremely obtuse not to see that this one, with Russia directly sending S-300 missiles to Assad, and the U.S. putting in a no-fly zone, 25-mile buffer zone around the borders, this one absolutely could lead to World War III. Let's not forget, Iran wants to send 3,000 or 4,000 Republican Guard troops down to Syria to help out Assad. This thing absolutely could spiral into some major conflict very, very quickly, I believe, anyway. It's my opinion.
Well, that's awesome. That's really great to know.
Yeah. So have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night, everybody. Sleep well.
Get the Geiger counter on order.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, appreciate you coming on and talking about us on these various world topics and the politics and stuff. As you said, and I think you said it very succinctly, that preppers do need to be aware of this. Things happen that are politically motivated, politically charged, whether it's a civil breakdown in the city or whatever. There are political backgrounds to it that need to be understood in order to be fully prepared. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
You got it, man.
And tell people where they can access your content again.
Oh, yeah. WideAwakeNews.com. You can go there. We upload articles there every day, and all my commentary videos are put up there. Krabby Dog Tricks on YouTube. And again, my program runs Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock West, 9 o'clock East on the Rinse Radio Network. We have a chat room you can access from wideawakenews.com as well. Just click on the microphone when you go there, and that'll give you the information on when to tune in and how to join the chat room.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Rob.
Definitely one of the longer podcasts that I've had in a while, but there's a lot of good content here, and I didn't want to edit any of it out, and I didn't want to cut Charlie short. My thanks to Charlie for coming on and talking to us about these topics. Until the next podcast, enjoy life, keep preparing, and stay safe.